If someone told me a few years ago that my wife would be the one to pitch an open marriage, I would have laughed, choked on my morning eggs, and asked what brand of tequila they'd been sipping at breakfast. But here we are. I'm Alex, 40, business owner, dad of twins, part-time therapist to employees, full-time man holding it all together with strong coffee and a half-broken Keurig. My wife, Tessa, was the love of my life, until she decided our marriage needed a refresh. Let's rewind. Tessa and I were high school sweethearts. The real deal. The kind of couple people rolled their eyes at during lunch break because we were that in love. We got married early, ignoring everyone's "you're too young" lectures. And honestly, for a long time they were wrong. We had a cozy apartment with a leaking sink we fixed together at 2 a.m. and a tradition of watching old horror movies while eating Chinese food from that place with the broken neon walk sign. Life was good. I built my business from scratch, 2 employees, a laptop, and a dream. Tessa painted, filled our home with canvases and wild splashes of color. Then came the double surprise. Twins, Jake and Elliot, 2 hungry, chaotic, tiny humans who turned our lives into a 24/7 sitcom with bodily fluids. The early parenting years were rough, but we found a rhythm. I worked like hell. She mommed like a champion. We made it work. But here's the thing no one tells you. Once the kids go off to private school and the noise stops, the silence hits like a freight train. Tessa got restless. I got stressed. She started painting less. I started drinking more coffee. We were roommates with shared expenses and joint custody of an emotional gap. Then, one Tuesday night over homemade tacos, she dropped it. "So, I talked to Leon today," she said, swirling her margarita. I froze mid-chew. Leon? The same Leon who once accidentally sent her shirtless selfies from Tulum? That Leon? Leon? I said, casually. Too casually. Yeah, we reconnected. He's been reading about open relationships. It's interesting, actually. Boom. I waited for her to laugh. She didn't. What exactly is interesting? I asked. She looked me dead in the eye, leaned forward like she was about to share a revolutionary idea. Open marriage, she said, like she was pitching me a startup. I've done some reading. It could be good for us. You know, growth, exploration. It doesn't have to mean cheating. It's about boundaries and connection. Let me be clear. I'm a guy who reads Forbes, not polyamory weekly. I install security systems for fun. I believe in loyalty, steak on Sundays, and using one toothbrush until it's legally classified as a hazard. So yeah, I was stunned. Tessa, I said slowly, if you think sleeping with other people is what we need, then you and I aren't even in the same zip code anymore. She pouted like I just canceled her Netflix subscription. This isn't about you, Alex. It's about me. I need to feel alive again. I offered options, a vacation, a weekend away, a surprise trip to that weird yurt resort she bookmarked last year. But she waved it all off. It's not the location, it's the freedom, she said with a philosophical sigh, as if quoting some relationship guru on TikTok. I remember going outside afterward, standing barefoot in the grass, wondering what in the actual hell just happened. A few days later, she came back with printed articles and an invite to a non-monogamy discussion group at a juice bar. No, I'm not making that up. They had a flyer with pastel pineapples and phrases like, "Reclaim your erotic energy." I told her if she walked into that juice bar, she'd be drinking her next smoothie through divorce papers. And that's when she snapped. "You always control everything," she hissed. "You build the walls. You decide what's right and wrong. Well, not anymore. Try to stop me and I'll take the kids, the house, and every damn avocado toast in this kitchen." Not gonna lie, part of me wanted to clap. It was an impressive performance. But underneath the drama, I knew she wasn't bluffing. She meant it. Then came the curveball. Tessa's younger sister, Bree, moved to our city to attend grad school at a fancy university with a tuition that made my bank account flinch. Tessa suggested she crash with us until she found a place. I agreed, somewhat reluctantly. Bree had always been the oddball, sharp tongue, even sharper mind, into obscure documentaries and plants with Latin names. She had the energy of a podcast host and the sarcasm of a sitcom character. At first, I kept my distance. I didn't need more estrogen-fueled chaos in the house. But Bree, she was different. She noticed things, asked how I was doing, actually listened when I ranted about vendor invoices or how the twins learned to swear in French from YouTube. She cooked weird meals, laughed at my lame jokes, and even helped me fix a busted faucet without calling me a dinosaur. We started talking more. About real stuff. About how messed up everything felt. About the stupid growth phase Tessa was going through. Bree didn't judge. She just listened. And yeah, I noticed her smile more than I should have. I noticed a lot more, actually. But nothing happened. Not yet. Tessa, meanwhile, dove headfirst into her newfound freedom. Girls' nights became a regular thing. She started coming home later. One night, she walked in with a bruised wrist and said, she tripped over a coffee table. We don't own a coffee table. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I kept my mouth shut, made dinner, and went back to handling payroll. But inside, something cracked. One night, Bree and I were sitting in the living room. The twins were asleep. The house was quiet. We were watching My Octopus Teacher, her pick. Obviously. At one point, she looked at me and said, you know, it's crazy. Tessa wants all this freedom, but what about you? Don't you get to feel alive, too? I laughed. I feel alive every time the mortgage clears. She rolled her eyes, then said, softer, you deserve better. I didn't reply. Because maybe for the first time, I started to believe it. Here's the thing about forbidden territory. It doesn't look dangerous when you're already lost. Bree wasn't just Tessa's little sister anymore. She'd somehow become my co-conspirator in sanity. She asked questions no one else did, like, when's the last time you did something just for yourself? Or, are you gonna let her rewrite your whole life and act like you're the villain? She said these things while making spicy lentil stew that looked like a chemistry experiment and tasted like comfort. Meanwhile, Tessa had fully embraced her new era of self-discovery. One night, she came home wearing a scarf that absolutely did not belong to her. I asked about it. She said it was a gift from a friend. I asked if the friend's name was Leon. She didn't answer. Instead, she poured herself a glass of wine, walked past me, and locked the bedroom door. Let me just say, nothing screams happy marriage like sleeping in your kid's dinosaur sleeping bag on a Tuesday night. The gap between us wasn't just emotional anymore, it was a canyon. And Bree, she was the bridge. We didn't plan it. It's not like we made a spreadsheet titled Steps to Betraying Your Wife with Her Sister. It was just another quiet night. She'd made popcorn the old-fashioned way in a pot with oil, which impressed me more than it should have. We sat down to watch some true crime documentary, Bree's version of a rom-com. At some point, we started talking about old memories. Our childhoods. The twins. The time I almost burned the garage down trying to install a new water heater. We laughed. A real, unfiltered kind of laugh that I hadn't felt in years. And then it happened. She looked at me with that piercing, curious gaze she always had and said, do you ever wish you'd married someone else? I hesitated, then said, I wish I'd married someone who didn't turn our marriage into a TED Talk on sexual freedom. We both laughed. Then silence. And somewhere in that silence, she kissed me. No fireworks. No dramatic music. Just too tired. People starved for connection, doing something incredibly stupid and undeniably human. I pulled away. We can't, I whispered. I know, she said. But I wanted to. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I regretted it, but because I didn't. Over the next few days, I tried to bury it. Tried. To focus on the kids, on inventory spreadsheets, on fixing a leaky gutter. But Bree and I kept circling each other like two planets caught in the same orbit. Then came the next step, the one you can't come back from. It was a Saturday. Tessa had gone to some artsy sound bath retreat with her friends. You know, the kind where grown adults lie on yoga mats while someone bangs a gong and whispers about aligning your energy. She was gone overnight. The twins were at a sleepover. Was just me and Bree, alone in a house that suddenly felt smaller. We didn't talk much. The tension was loud enough. We ate dinner, cleaned up. I poured 2 glasses of wine. She stood by the window looking out. I should move out, she said softly. Probably, I replied. She turned around. Do you want me to? I didn't. Answer with words. I kissed her. This time I didn't pull away. This time it wasn't just a kiss. It was a choice. A wrong one. But it felt more right than anything I'd done in months. After that night, we became something else. Not a couple. Not a fling. Just two people who snuck borrowed time between someone else's chaos. We didn't get sloppy. We weren't reckless. But we weren't invisible either. I started noticing the looks. Tessa's eyes lingered longer. Her questions got sharper. Where? Were you today? Did you talk to Bree? Why are you always so tired? One night, out of nowhere, she brought up our wedding vows. We promised to grow together, she said. I looked at her. You grew into someone I don't even recognize. Her face changed. I know you're with someone. I said nothing. Is it her? Still silence. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She just nodded, walked away, and slammed the door hard enough to shake a photo off the wall. For the next few days, she tried to fix it. Weirdly, she started cooking again, badly, making pancakes with the wrong flour, putting sticky notes on. My coffee mug that said things like, I miss us. I felt nothing. Okay, not nothing, but not what I should have. I kept thinking of Bree, of our talks, our laughs, the way she looked at me like I was a person, not a project. The guilt came in waves, but it was never about betraying Tessa. It was about what this would do to Bree, what it would turn her into in Tessa's eyes, forever. So I told her we needed to slow down, that I needed to figure out what the hell I was doing. She understood. She always did. Then came the morning that blew it all up. I woke up, and both my phones, personal and work, were gone. I found Tessa in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor, my phones in her lap. Her face pale, mascara smudged, hands trembling. She'd seen everything. The texts, the photos, voice memos, a saved draft of an unsent love letter I wrote to Bree at 2 a.m. Yeah, I know, rookie move. She looked at me with that mix of heartbreak and rage I didn't think she was capable of. With her? My sister, she screamed. Didn't flinch. You wanted an open marriage, I said calmly. I just played by the rules you created. She threw the phone at the wall. It shattered. Those weren't the rules. Oh, I said. So it's only growth when it benefits you? She cried. Hard, the kind of crying that comes from the gut. I stood there, arms crossed, not because I didn't feel anything, but because I had felt everything for so long I was numb. After the phone incident, the house felt radioactive. Every room crackled with tension, like stepping into a crime scene where the body had been replaced with unresolved emotions and broken IKEA furniture. Tessa didn't scream again. She didn't throw things. She went quiet, which was worse. You know the kind of silence that makes even the fridge hum sound guilty? That's where we lived now. For the first few days, she didn't speak to me unless it was about the kids. She cooked dinner like a 1950s housewife, with a fake smile and red wine always within arm's reach. She even started wearing perfume again, the one she wore when we first met. I think it was called Midnight Blossom or Expensive Regret. Something like that. Meanwhile, Bree moved out. No dramatic goodbye. Just a quick, thanks for everything, and a tight hug that said a whole lot more. She texted me a few times from campus, short messages like, "You okay?" or "I miss talking." I never responded, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know what the hell to say. Tessa tried to stitch the marriage back together with leftover thread and Pinterest ideas. She planned a family movie night, made lasagna, put on a playlist called Love Us Again. I sat there, eating overcooked pasta and pretending the notebook wasn't a hostage situation. One night, she finally said it. "I forgive you." I looked up from my plate. "You forgive me?" "Yes," she said, nodding like a self-help guru. "I've been thinking about therapy, about healing, about us." "Interesting," I said. "Because I don't think you've ever actually said sorry." She blinked. "Sorry for what?" "For opening the door," I said. "For choosing freedom over us, for making me feel like the bad guy for playing your game." She went quiet. "You think I planned this?" I continued. You think I woke up one day and thought, hey, I'd love to blow up my life with her sister? No, I was drowning. You handed me a lifeboat made of entitlement and called it growth. We sat in silence for a long time. Then she whispered, do you still love me? I didn't answer right away. Because honestly, I didn't know. I don't even know who you are anymore, I finally said. But more importantly, I don't know who I am with you. The next morning, she made French toast, the same kind she used to make when we first moved in together. The smell hit me like a memory I didn't ask for. She poured coffee, sat across from me, and said, if there's any chance, I want to take it. I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't the wild, free-spirited girl I married, and I wasn't the guy who could fix things with takeout and a back rub. I'm not saying no, I told her, but this isn't something a Sunday brunch fixes. Trust isn't an app you reinstall. After that, we entered what I call the limbo phase. No divorce papers, no reconciliation, just observation. We coexisted, like co-workers who once hooked up at the office, party and now awkwardly share a coffee machine. I focused on the kids, on my business. I started jogging, not because I liked running, I still hate it, but because I needed to chase something, even if it was just the illusion of progress. Bree and I didn't speak for a while. I'd see her on Instagram sometimes at campus events, or posing with her plants like some kind of Gen Z herbal witch. She looked happy, or at least good at faking it, like most of us. Eventually, we ran into each other at a bookstore. Random, right? She was browsing the self-discovery section. I was buying a gift card. We locked eyes. That weird spark was still there, but now it carried weight, guilt, history, and a little amusement. You still read those productivity books? She teased. Only the ones with clickbait titles, I replied. Like, rebuild your life in 30 days. I'm on day 86. She laughed. We didn't hug, didn't make promises, just nodded and moved on. Back home, things with Tessa remained manageable. She kept trying. I kept observing. The twins noticed the difference, of course. Kids always do. Jake asked me one night, are you and Mom fighting? No, I said. We're just figuring stuff out. Like when you fixed the garbage disposal? Exactly. He nodded. That took forever. Yep. Now, months later, I still live in that weird emotional middle ground. I'm not divorced. I'm not in love. I'm not sure what comes next, but I do know this. I'm not the man who begged to keep his marriage alive at all costs. I'm not the guy who ignored his needs for the sake of being the good husband. I've been through the fire, and while I don't know where I'll land, I'm damn sure not crawling anymore. Maybe one day I'll give things another try with Tessa or someone new. Maybe I'll end up alone, finally getting through my unread pile of business books and eating cereal at midnight without judgment. But one thing's for sure. If you let someone break you once, they'll try again. Forgiveness is optional. Self-respect isn't.